Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Well, for once, I get to say good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio this afternoon. My name is Dave Scott, and we are having this impromptu show tonight or this afternoon to break down all of the emotion that is going on right now with Jason Sands, the latest whistleblower, coming on out on a Twitter space put out by Rob Wood last night. Now, this was totally unaccepted or unknown and unannounced. It just kind of happened. And Courtney Marcassani is with us here, and Rob Wood is with us as well. We're just going to get right to it because there's no point in relaxing. Courtney, thank you very much for coming on in. And this is a big day for you. This is a big day for ufology because Twitter is running rampant right now. And it's amazing what's really, truly going on here. I'll get you to unmute your mic.
Yeah, well, I didn't know about the space. There was an earlier space, and of course there was a space that I did on Friday. So when I did the space on Friday, I brought on somebody who's not a whistleblower, but he was one of my sources. And in working with him, talking with him, getting to know him, he remembered Jason Sands, his report to the UAP task force. And so they had actually spoke to one another back then in like 2021. And so as I got to know Jason, because we broke the story on SOR and we kind of had to backpedal a little bit because people didn't know the story. And I got to know Jason, both of them were confidential. Steve is still confidential. Jason just kept saying to us, you and I, to keep his name out of any kind of reporting. And he really didn't want his story to be told. So when we initially told his story, what was on the UAP task force, we took it down out of respect for him as a whistleblower. So a whole series of events happens that leads up into this weekend, which just hit a historic evening, I would say, when he came on and announced himself and explained his story himself.
Well, I have to say that it was impromptu completely. I got a message from one of my sources last night saying, you better tune into this. And all of a sudden I tune in and there you are. There's Jason Sands. And I'm like, oh my God, this is happening.
I didn't know, I was surprised. I was so surprised. So I just jumped in to support him because I didn't know what he was saying. And so I just went in to listen, observe, and to support him so he could see that I was in there to stand by his side. And he did very well. He was already answering questions for people, describing his history, describing his military history, his intelligence history. And he had kind of already done that by the time I came into the space. And as I understand it, I counted over 1,000 people at one time that were in there.
And we had close to 400 when we started broadcasting it live because
wow.
I kicked into Rob G last night during the after hours where he was interviewing R. Keith Andrews, and I messaged him privately and I said, we got to do this. We got to go right now. and he immediately turned it over. We hopped in and we were able to carry the last, I think, 3.5 hours of that Twitter space. Courtney, there's a lot of people who may be listening who don't understand what a Twitter or X space is. So if you could kind of give a breakdown of what an X space is, I'd appreciate that.
You know, it was a later phase of like Clubhouse. If people remember Clubhouse or Marco Polo, there's like these little audio apps that you can download on your phone and upload friends into them. And then you're able to listen and hear them, but you don't see the video. So X took that a step further when they developed, you know, Twitter. And so when they first had Twitter, you could just make posts. And a lot of people didn't understand Twitter because of the certain type of keys you had to use and code almost. So it was really a turnoff for a lot of people. But then they incorporated, it was about 1.5 years ago, they started doing beta testing on Spaces. And Spaces allows people who are connected, or even people who are not connected actually, to go into a public space and talk to one another. And they usually bring up hot topics, news, things that you're interested in. And then you can see that space on the top of your Twitter handle, and then you can enter into a space and listen. While you're in the space, there's usually a host and a moderator, and then all the people listening down below. And then when you want to ask a question, they'll let you up to come into the top. So Jason was at the top because he was one of the speakers. And so he was able to answer people's questions as they came up.
Okay, so he goes on this space. Rob Wood puts it on, and Rob did a great job. It kind of caught Rob off guard as well, you know, that all of a sudden, you know, here his space all of a sudden gets taken over by this whistleblower coming out. And
I thought Rob arranged the whole thing. Did he not?
No.
I thought he organized it all.
No. And I see some questions popping up. Just put them in capital letters if you don't mind. And we'd appreciate it. It'd be easier for me to read because my eyes are not as good as they used to be. But Rob sets this up, and Rob's on the Twitter space. Jason hops on, and Rob, I don't know if you're ready to chat yet or not. We'll bring you in here. I'll get you to unmute your mic if you don't mind, and you can kind of let us know how it all kind of played out.
Yeah, that seems to be the consensus that I pointed out, but that wasn't the case at all. I had originally just started a space for, with friends just to kick back and talk about the topic because the story had been taking hold midweek, and I'd put Steve's name. The original title of the space is "Will Steve Prove That Lou Is True?"
Okay.
And then it just kind of Steve showed up, and then AKA showed up, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. And the next thing I know, I'm getting a DM on the back end. Over in the unknown people, DM. And it's a guy, Jason Sands, and he says he's the first-hand whistleblower, and if he's going to talk, now would be the time for him to talk, more or less. And he usually doesn't do this type of thing. And at first, I kind of thought, well, maybe this is a LARP, and I still don't know surely that it wasn't. But the guy seems sincere, so we'll see where it goes from here.
You had a space going on for nearly 12 hours. At what point did Jason hop on?
Let's see. I started around 3 p.m. Central Time, I guess, and it was maybe 6 or so when he jumped in there, so maybe around the halfway mark. It may have been sooner than that. I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure, or fairly certain, it was around the halfway mark when he showed up. So.
How did you come to the point that you wanted to let it go, that it was just time to allow this to happen and let the conversation happen naturally?
Ooh, let me think on that one and come back around, Dave. Hold on, I got kids running around wild. So.
That's okay. We know that this is something that is kind of off topic because we don't usually do this, but that's kind of the thing. You get anybody in these Twitter spaces, Courtney, who can hop on there, and you don't know who they are, and they can pretty much say whatever comes to mind. But every now and again, a golden nugget comes up from the ground, and there it is. And that's kind of what happened last night, Courtney.
Well, I had actually been talking to Jason because I had been telling him kind of what was going on in the community, and a lot of these spaces are really vitriolic. There's a lot of animosity. A couple weeks ago, I went on one, and there was just shouting and yelling at one another. And I just sat in there to observe. One, because I heard there was a doxing file on all of us, that somebody had a doxing file with our kids' names and legal stuff and legal information that was going to be released. So I went in there from a legal standpoint to find out who had it. And so I was just listening, I wasn't even partaking in anything. And then what ended up happening is Kurt Mongol got brought up, and why he had stepped out of the community and said that he was really burnt out and tired because nothing seemed to be going anywhere. It's more trust me, bro stuff. And so Nicole had come into space because she was involved a little bit with the Canadian issues that happened with the diplomacy for disclosure between the US and the Canadians. And so she spoke about that, and she was very articulate and eloquent about everything. And then it got into the whistleblowers. And so Nicole had suggested maybe I should step up in that space because I had some firsthand knowledge about some of the whistleblowers. So that's initially how some of this got kicked off, because people in those spaces hadn't heard what we had discussed on Spaced Out already all the way back in January. They just weren't aware of it. And so that really snowballed. And so when I was talking with Jason, I was telling him what was going on, in the community. And we were talking about it. And yesterday we had a heart to heart, about everything. And he didn't tell me, that he had made this decision that he was going to go on a space. I think it was, obviously somewhat spontaneous, but I know he really thought deeply about it as well, about going on. So I'm glad he did it. Now, the response to it I knew would be potentially problematic, because people feel that him coming onto an open Twitter space takes away from his credibility. That's the biggest issue at hand right now.
There's been drastic reaction from people on both sides of the ledger, that people are very excited that we have a new name out. We have people who are absolutely going haywire, saying, that there's no evidence. It's just another trust me bro type story. And, they're already calling and saying that this is already canceled the next whistleblower hearings and all of this. The exaggeration on everybody's side, doesn't matter which side it is, because we're going to call this down the middle, is a little bit tough to take, considering that here we are, we're 20 hours in now, or since the thread started, and about 15 hours since Jay Sands actually spoke publicly. I mean, where do we stand? Is there a lot of over-exaggeration going on right now, Courtney?
I think that the hearing, I had heard that the hearing was set for October, and he had already talked to people about his upcoming testimony for the hearing. So I knew that was already in play. I knew that he had already testified to the ICIG, last year, and everybody came to support him, with his testimony, and that he had been cleared through the DOPSR process because he wanted to be able to share his story with the journalists who were pushing for it as well, so that he could share it legally. So he went through that process. So he's taken all the steps. Would his going on to a Twitter space potentially derail the hearing? I don't think so, because he was going to tell his story anyway. He was always planning to tell his story this year. It was going to come out. So because the nature of the Twitter space was so exhaustive, and there are so many different types of questions about historical stuff, I don't know if that will influence or not. We'll have to wait and see. I hope not. It was already planned. It was already in the works. There's a lot of support for it. Like I said, Chris Mellon, Lou Elizondo, Ross Coulthart were all in DC about 3 weeks ago. So there were meetings already about this and moving the NDAA amendment, the statute forward. So I think that's all going to happen. I think that he just decided this was the right time to come out. And in some ways that changed people's plans. And yes, they might be upset about that. I haven't talked to him yet today, so I don't know. I can't share that.
I have talked to one insider earlier today who said that one of the concerns that other whistleblowers are having right now is not so much that Jason came out, it's the reaction from the UFO public and the attack dogs that are out there, that the minute someone says something that they don't agree with, that they're going to be castigated to the UFO rubbish bin. And that is more the concern that I am hearing behind the scenes.
Well, that was always at play too. Remember when David Grush came out, everybody kept saying, where are the next whistleblowers? Where are the next whistleblowers? And they were all saying they were waiting to see how David Grush was going to be treated in that process. And so that to some degree was a litmus test already about how the public treated him. Now, this is different. I understand that, because Jay Sands went on to a Twitter space to share his story, but the power in that, in my opinion, is he wanted to talk directly to people and have them know him as a firsthand witness, and to be able to learn about his experiences. He wasn't asking anybody to believe him or to trust him, but he was saying what his process was, and that he had been verified and all of his experience had been checked in order to be testifying. So it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. I really hope it doesn't derail the hearing, but I have a feeling there's more important people involved moving the hearing forward.
I don't think it's going to, when I'm talking about the people I'm talking to, I don't see it canceling the hearing. I think this is just propagandists by people who think that they are either in the know, or that they are trying to, once again, castigate the story that Jason Sands told. Because for a lot of people out there who look at this, Courtney, they look at this story as being very nuts and bolts, that this isn't about aliens or extraterrestrials. This is about UFOs, or UAP, and this is about technology. It's about propulsion and anti-gravitics and everything along those lines. And I was saying to one source today, you're never going to make the nuts and boltsers happy with it the minute you bring in a little bit of woo type story on this, because A, they don't want to hear it. B, they don't believe it, because their opinion usually outweighs, what is actually happening. And C, unfortunately, when it comes to things like that, there's usually no physical evidence that comes along with it. So it's very difficult for a lot of people to accept a story like Jason Sands.
But as I understand it, he did testify to his NHI experience in the desert. So some of the people who are read in on Congress and the people who were at the ICIG, when he testified, they heard that information. He did say that he had a bunch of different talking points that he wanted to go through with them, and that they just kept skirting in these other questions in these other areas that he didn't even get through his talking points when he did do his testifying. So they obviously were interested in that. That was an area that they wanted to know more about, I would guess.
Well, are you surprised by the public reaction to this?
No, not at all. First of all, it's unprecedented. This has never happened before. As I said, major criticism just around him coming out this way, because people feel like, he's just asking people to trust who he is, right? Before he's come out through the hearing. So I actually respect him for coming out this way, because he felt it was the right time. He talked about this on the space, that he felt like all the stars and planets were aligning, meaning that, the UAP task force had done their job. AARO had taken over. Congress had approved the NDAA. They were working on the statute. And so he felt like all these different moving parts and pieces were moving, and that now was the right time. And I also think that he wanted to, I think he wanted to reach out to people individually so that they could know who he was. And I think that was very touching to witness and be a part of.
Do we think that this is going to be a one and done for Jason? Or do you think that he will?
Oh yeah. No, this was it. This might be the only thing that he does this year, depending on, the hearing time and the date, and also all the different people that he made agreements to and commitments to about the media stuff that he already agreed to. So he'll probably do all of that like he had planned anyway, but I don't think that he's going to come back out.
What are the dangers of what he did? Is there any danger to him? Is there any danger to the whistleblowers that might not have or might have been considering coming out?
I mean, I think that there's always dangers when, you make this kind of decision, but I know that he put his heart into it and he thought about it deeply. And so he got an answer. He got an answer inside of himself to do that because he's a very thoughtful, reflective person. And he doesn't take these kind of decisions lightly. So I know he put a lot of thought into it. And if his intuition or his feeling gave him the go ahead, then I trust that. And I honestly hoped that by him doing this, it would inspire other people to feel good about coming and talking about their experiences and do whistleblowing if they had to, because he talked about all the different things that had been set up for whistleblowers, how they'd established all these ways for them to come out and discuss programs safely through his contacts and different individuals. And he also talked about how isolating and lonely it has been on his journey. And so I really hoped that the people in this space would be supportive, and they were. The standards were just lifted in Twitter spaces, which was also kind of unprecedented because nobody was fighting. People that didn't get along with each other and had major beefs with one another, they were respecting everybody in order to let Jason have his space. So I thought that was miraculous, actually, and showed that we can work together and be kind to one another and not, fall into the mud pit.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the way people were, and I give credit to Rob Wood for running a very tight ship on that, because he wasn't allowing it to get out of hand, and he wasn't allowing it to go a little bit overboard. He wanted to give Jason Sands a time to sink or swim. Do you think, though, that a Twitter space or an X space was the proper place for Jason to come out first and foremost, or should it have been in more a media controlled environment? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know who would have been controlling, the media for him. Only he could speak to that, because I don't know. I know that he had a media plan, and it was going to be, very much the same of working with Grush and other individuals who are guiding him through the process. One of the things I think that we're not thinking about here is all the geopolitical things that are going on in the US right now. When I talked with my family about this and this unprecedented historic thing, they were all like, oh my goodness, and, very supportive. But then they said, if he didn't do this now, maybe he wouldn't have another opportunity to do it because of everything that's going on with Congress, in our politics right now, the election. And so that was another good point that they raised that I thought was very valid. If he didn't do this now, and if it didn't happen later, he never would have had the chance. So there's all these other things at play that we should carefully consider too, and what he was thinking in his mind, why he did it.
Right. And I think that's a good point on that. I mean, I didn't, I can honestly say I didn't think about the timeline. I didn't think about the timeline at all with everything that's kind of going on, and I just hope that, this isn't a one and done situation, because I think he's in that position where he's damned if you do and damned if you don't. But if we don't hear from him again, whether it's on Spaced Out Radio, whether it's on News Nation, whether it's on Fox, whether it's on Joe Rogan or whoever it may be, I think that is going to look a little bit not so good on his part. One and dones are never really a good thing when you have a lot of interesting information that you're bringing forward to the public.
Yeah, I know, but he did such a long space, hours long space. It was almost like he was testifying all over again as I was listening to it. He was answering to the general public. He was also answering the UFO community directly. And when have we seen that? Where have we seen that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that at all. Rob, did you want to kick in here?
Mic check. I don't think my headset's connected.
Are you there, Rob? All right. We'll just leave them right there for a minute. Okay, so let's recap before we get to some audience questions, and I do want to get to some audience reaction here. I have, if you're looking on our YouTube page, I have posted the StreamYard link up there that you can ask myself or Courtney anything. I only ask that you keep it polite, no swearing, and keep your emotions in check. We are going to be, if you're a supporter, if you want to know more, if you don't believe it, we want to know your opinion on things, but keep it professional. Keep it the way that you would talk to your mom. Okay. So that's just the way I'm looking at it. But
why don't you just take questions? Let's just take questions.
We can do that too.
Yeah, let's just go right to the questions. That might be better and speak to directly what people want to know.
All right, let's start off with Pixie Lara here. Could you recap Jason's experience, please?
Yeah, so I learned about Jason's experience through what ended up happening was James Fox, when he was on set, he had the clapboard where you cut, and you begin and end each scene. And Jason Sands' name was on the clapboard. And so was another whistleblower who was interviewed for the film, the program. Or the programs. I'm not exactly sure if it's plural or not, but so he was just taking, pictures, screenshots, and then he put them on Twitter. And so the names got leaked to the public. So that's how this all got started. Then what happened was, I didn't see that, but I got the names because somebody sent them to me and said, there's 2 more whistleblowers coming out. And so, of course, I was really excited. Dave knew them as well. So I started working on the names to see if I knew people who could help me vet these contacts. And I did have mutual contacts with Jason Sands. So one of the contacts knew Jason Sands' story from the UAP task force. He had seen his story on the forum, which is essentially like this group chat things for people who have classified clearance, TSI clearance. They can communicate together between different departments on certain problems. So he had shared with a friend of mine who knew I had his name that he had seen a being out in the desert, out in Nellis Air Force Range, out in the range, and he had had a telepathic communication with this being. And so that's what Dave and I reported, back in January, kind of before we should have reported it, because nobody else had the story. I did vet the story. I did get other people to verify it was true, but I didn't go to Jason and ask him specifically. So we ran with the story, and that what ended up happening is we had to take it down because he is a federal whistleblower, and we wanted to protect him. So I got to know Jason through that whole process. I apologized to him for putting the story on SOR probably before it was ready. But in that process, I got to learn about him, his experience, his Air Force experience, his intelligence experience, and he essentially shared, what he testified to and everything. So that main story is the story that he told on SpaceX last night. But then he also went into great detail about all of his other experiences, and he theorized a little bit about what he thinks is going on. But he basically did testimony to everybody who asked questions. But that was the story. That's the essence of the story of what his experience was. He had an NHI direct contact in the desert.
Yeah. And now there's all sorts of stories kind of going around here. He was on a I don't know the proper military term, and I apologize. He was not an employee at Area 51. Let's clear that up. He was on there on a training exercise, I believe, when this happened.
We'd have to clear that with him, because I've heard a couple different things now, so I would have to run that by him. So I'm not exactly sure.
I'm going by what he told me. So
he was in a convoy. He was told by a superior not to stop in the desert, to keep moving, even if they saw anybody out in the desert. And they were in the convoy, and they saw somebody in a military uniform and fatigues. So they thought it was a service member. So they stopped, and they realized it wasn't a human being. It was some other type of being. And so he asked if he needed help. And then the being said he needed an element for his ship. That was part of the original story. and then he started to speak with him telepathically, where they had a telepathic conversation and the being communicated with him that way. That was the essence of his experience.
All right. Now, if I do understand, Jason, during the show last night, and I did not write it down, he did give a description where he was. They were on the test range, but it wasn't, I believe, at Area 51. It was in the Nellis. He used the term Nellis test range.
He was in Nellis. Yeah, he was in Nellis. But what Jason said to him was, why don't you go over to Area 51 to get the element? And the being said he couldn't go over there because they were murderers. And so that is when they started to speak, in telepathically. And that's his story. That's what he's going to be testifying to.
Yeah, random guy in the chat room. I don't remember what it was. Okay, so don't paraphrase it like he didn't know. He actually gave it on the space last night, and I just am misremembering it. So that is my issue. Okay, so let's go to another question here, and let's go to Eli. Has anybody spoken to James Fox about this? Is he upset?
I think Nicole spoke with him. I think that Jason also said that he spoke with him and was chatting with him while he was on the space last night. So yes. I don't know if he's upset. I can't say for sure. I didn't ask Jason if he was going to be upset.
Juan is asking, Patrick Unvetted is saying that Jason Sands was ordered to kill the blue alien. I did not hear that.
No.
Let's go to Android. What exactly is he whistleblowing on? Reverse engineering?
He's basically saying, yes, that there are programs. And first of all, he said in the space last night, I mean, he said this to me too, but he repeated it in the space last night, that he was doing monitoring. He transitioned in one job over to another job, and his job while he was out there was to monitor different departments and to find leaks or problems, and then write up, reports, intelligence reports, and pass them on to his superior. And so one of the things that he is probably also testifying to, I mean, I saw this in the AARO report, that there was his testimony about overhearing a call, and he wrote a report about it, and there were other witnesses to it. So that also went to AARO, that testimony.
Yeah. And when did he testify?
I think he testified. I'll have to go and double check. I think it was last year.
Okay. All right. And what else can we go to here? Let's go to another question. Let's go to Superb Water. Patrick Unvetted said Jason killed the being or heard he was ordered to. Is this true? No. I don't recall hearing Jason say that.
No, he didn't say that.
Yeah. Let's go to Android. Is he the whistleblower that's going to be in James Fox's new doc, or is that someone else?
Yeah, he's the new whistleblower that James Fox has been talking about on X. He put his picture up and said, this is military X. He's going to be coming out when he is given amnesty to testify. And he'll be in the movie, and that's supposed to be coming out, I believe, in September.
All right.
Thank you for the clarification, Aloha Dave. He said that it was in 2022.
Yes, thank you, Aloha Dave, for that. And let's go to Jules here. Saw a tweet earlier that Steve may be stepping away from talking more in public. Is this true?
Yeah. Yeah, he's going to go through the DOPSR process now because everybody is, putting his character into question as well. So he'll go through the DOPSR process so he can be public as well.
All right. Let's see here. Big one from Lee, your biggest fan. Did you have breakfast for dinner today?
I had a fajita for dinner, and my sister made it for me because I'd been up all night and up all day. So that was nice of her to take care of me.
Now, you haven't slept yet. You've been going all night.
Yeah. Yeah. Mostly to respond to questions of who these individuals are and why we should trust them.
What is the word on the street right now regarding all of this that you're hearing in the background? Never mind X.
Well, the only person I talked to last night was Jason, after the space ended. That was the only person who I really talked to. I've talked with other people, but they just want to be, basically like put in touch with them. So it hasn't really been a lot of talk.
Do you believe then behind the scenes there's a lot of posturing now going on? Because here's why I asked that, is because I remember having a conversation with him a couple months ago, and he stated to me that he needed to get permission, or at least I'm thinking this is what he said to me, that he needed to get permission to go public. Did that happen?
It was through the DOPSR process. He had to go through the DOPSR process, and he elevated that and got pressure behind it to get it pushed through faster. And so he said that, yes, that was approved so that he could share the story.
Okay. And I remember him saying about sharing the story. I didn't know that that included his background or anything along those lines when I talked to him. I thought it was just about the DOPSR process was about.
Well, I don't know what you guys, talked about. I was never in that conversation, so I don't really know.
No, I know, I understand that, nor would you, but I'm just kind of curious about, how he was able to come out, because one of the things that Jason had told me was that they were really watching what David Grush and the team of lawyers were doing behind the scenes on whether or not it was safe to come out yet or not. So he must have felt safe, or I don't want to use the word got permission, but he must have felt safe on knowing that the timing was right.
Yeah, he pushed that all through that so he could talk about his story and write about it and be able to have all of these articles written about him with his real name. I mean, that was the whole point of going through the DOPSR process, so he could share his real name. That's why he didn't want us to share his name in any of the Spaced Out Radio segments that we did, because he hadn't gotten through the DOPSR process yet. And so I hadn't heard about all those other concerns or issues. Honestly, I had only heard that he wanted to make sure it was legal that he did the DOPSR process first.
All right, let's move on. And if you are posting your questions within our chat room, just post them once. I will be able to get to them because I don't want to double up on any questions here. Let's quickly go to, let's see here. Let's go to Sharon Martin. Where can we listen to his testimony? Now, I can answer that, or go ahead, Courtney.
Well, the space wasn't set up for him to come in. He came in later, so it wasn't initially recorded, as I understand. So there were people that recorded it. Dave is one of them. He came through like partially through, but there have been recordings posted on X of people who recorded it. Now, I don't know if that's okay or not, if he ever approved his stuff to be recorded or not, but I know that there are recordings out there. I'm just not sure if they're legal or whatever.
Okay, let's continue on here. Let's go to Bub and the Starseeds. It's such a band name. It's awesome. What type of ET was it? Do we know?
I believe he said last night that he thought it might have been one of the Nordics, but you'll have to double check in that space. But I think that that's what he said.
All right. And follow up from Bub is, do whistleblowers risk being arrested?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. Do you think that Jason broke any laws last night in doing that?
Not from what I heard. He didn't talk about anything classified. He did give an opinion on a few things here or there, but I think he's entitled to do that based off of his experience. But I didn't hear him break any classifications.
All right. Let's go over to Mike. Do you think you'll have him on Spaced Out Radio in the near future? We don't know. We don't know. We're going to try, but that's going to be up to Jason on how comfortable he is with everything. And right now, I don't know if that would pop in or not. So we'll see how it goes. Let's go to Android. What did this being look like? How long was the encounter?
He said that it was really cold in the desert at that time of the year when they were out there. And the being looked like it was frozen, like it was very, very, very frosted, like white cold from the temperature, and also blue, tinged blue. He said that the ears were very strange, the way that they were on the being's head, and it had a longish, strangest kind of nose, and I believe a smaller mouth. And he said it was probably around, it wasn't as tall as he was, so it was probably around 5'6" or 5'7".
All right. Bub and the Starseeds. What stops a whistleblower from being arrested? They signed an oath of secrecy, surely.
A lot of the guys have been talking about this in the spaces who were in some of these programs about having to sign NDAs, but because of Congress and doing testimony, some of their NDAs were lifted so that they could testify.
All right, just bear with me because I'm getting sent something here. All right. Let's see here. Hey, Rob, can you just give me a thumbs up if that's supposed to go public or if that's private? You can put it in the private message there. Okay. In regards to another question, let's go to Eli. Was he the witness who heard communication in the 1990s where he heard electronic communication between scientists in the AARO Historical Review?
Yes. He talked about his overhearing dialogue about whites and grays, and he also talked about a test in the AARO report.
That I did not know.
I believe he said that last night in the space.
All right. I apologize. Just like you, my phone is blowing up as we're doing this here. So it's a little bit different than what we normally do on a spaced out radio night, but that's what you get for doing things impromptu at times, I guess. And we want to thank, so far there's 360 people tuned into this, and we really appreciate it. If you don't mind, give us a follow, or if you're on YouTube, hit subscribe and ring that bell. We'd greatly appreciate it. Let's go back to Android. What happened at the end of the encounter? Did it just walk away?
You know, he went into that a little bit last night, and I heard new parts of that. So I'm going to have to go back and listen to it because he talked about other things like missing time, and he filled in a lot of gaps. So I have to go and listen to that part myself. There was another podcast that talked about his story, and I believe this is why he came out, is because they got a lot of it wrong. They got a lot of the story wrong, and you know, some of it was factual, but a lot of it wasn't. And I think he was concerned when some of these spaces were starting to come up and people were repeating the story, it just wasn't factual. So he wanted to say it in his own words. So I'll let him do that, you know, because that was all new to me, this whole other encounter after they had the telepathic experience.
Todd Turner says, Courtney rocks. Courtney rocks.
Hey, Todd.
Little Toddy Turner.
Hey, Todd. Glad you're in the house, bro.
All right. Let's go to I want to get to something that Rob just sent me, and that is, and I'm going to read this verbatim here from a private message that Rob sent me, that Jason wants to clear up that he says he'd like to clarify some inaccurate comments. One, I was part of the IAPT or UAPTF for them and was not employed by them. Second, I didn't kill anyone, especially a blue alien. LOL, man, some people.
Yeah, I think we just said that on here too, that no.
Well, now we hear it from the
No.
man himself. So that's kind of cool. And
So
thank you.
Rob is communicating with him right now?
Yeah, Jason had sent that to
Okay.
him. And big thank you to Android for the super chat. Very much appreciate that. Android, thank you.
Well, tell Rob to come back on. Tell him
Well,
to come
Rob's
back
right
on.
here, but he's having troubles with his audio. Rob, can you
There he
hear
is.
us? I don't know. I think he just wants to listen. All right. We do have one person here. Anuibi. Anuibi, are you there?
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Excellent. How are you?
Good. Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt the conversation flow, but when you did say that you posted the StreamYard earlier, I just wanted to pop in and say, me as a millennial and me having so many different interests on X, I really, really appreciate it. Jason coming out the way he did. It was 6 o'clock in the morning where I live, so I did miss a few hours prior, but from a millennial's perspective and me having so many different interests and not just being in the UFO community, it was so refreshing. And I just really do not know all the players. But as Courtney earlier said, I have been in spaces before and usually am not in spaces because there's a lot of hatred going on or a lot of yelling and finger pointing. But what I've heard from Jason, I find it very credible, and from my perspective, I really appreciate it, and I hope he will continue doing so. And in respect of, was X Spaces the right platform? I would say 100% is because it was so authentic. It wasn't scripted. It was for the public. He did answer all the questions. There were even some non-believers who were a little bit not so nice or not pleasant to him, but that didn't shook him in any way, shape, or form. So I really appreciated it because you kind of heard it from the source, and really everybody was invited to a spaces. Whereas I feel if it's like a YouTube video or a podcast, some things that maybe not edited out. So from my perspective, I really appreciate it, and I hope he will continue, but I also understand if he wouldn't. And I'm just a little bit upset about the negativity. However, I think the positivity outweighs, if that makes sense. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you for those wonderful comments, and welcome to Spaced Out Radio. And we really appreciate that, a newbie.
Thank you. I'll get back on to the regular live stream. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, Courtney, that's showing you some love there for the job that you helped with Jason. I'm just going to say that.
Well, he's a great guy. He's a great person. I've gotten to know him, like I said in the space last night, it's been a privilege knowing him and becoming his friend. And, if I don't know something or if I make a mistake, I always go back to him and ask him, and he always clarifies things. And if I do make a mistake, he always is like, it's okay. Just, figure it out, make the declaration and move on. He's always really straightforward like that. And he gives people second chances. And that's what I really like about him. He hasn't ever shut the door on me. Especially when we talked about this on Spaced Out Radio, it opened the door to talk to him, and he was very forgiving about the whole thing. So, like I said, I'm very privileged and proud to know him, and also just to be in any way a small help with having him get to know the wider community, because he's a good person.
Yeah, I think so too. And I mean, it's very hard for anybody to come out about anything. It's very difficult. It's an emotional challenge. How is Jason's emotions right now after that?
I just gave him a lot of props, and I said I thought he did great, and it was such a surprise. I mean, it was such an overwhelming surprise when I heard he was in there. So I just wanted to give him a lot of props. And he was tired because he just talked pretty much all night long and didn't really get any breaks. So I just spoke with him quickly and then, said, I'll talk to you soon. And so it was all good. It was all good. I don't know how he feels in the light of day today. That's always different, after you step out like that in a public way. So I don't know how he's feeling today, but Rob might know. If he's communicating with him, he might be able to say.
A big thank you as well to Andrew for the super chat. Rob, have you had a chance to talk with Jason today?
I haven't had a chance to touch base with him about how he's feeling about all this yet. I was getting around to that. We've been discussing other things. So.
Okay. That's still cool, though. But I'm glad he's clarifying things with you. Courtney, let's go to another question from our audience here. And let's go to Pixie Lara, who is asking, how does Jason feel about how things will unfold this year? More testimony, possibly publicly, and does he feel optimistic?
He said that one of the reasons why he came into the space last night is because he was feeling optimistic because of all these different things happening and the stars and planets kind of aligning with the UAP task force. Hold on, my sister's dogs are barking. Sorry. And then, AARO having done its job and the hearing coming up. So I do think he's very positive. He did say that he was, concerned that we could take a backslide into the past where things don't come out. But he said the younger generation and this generation particularly can make a change. And he was positive about that. And that's why he was doing what he was doing. He wants to see that change too and help out with it.
Okay. Let's go to Bub here. And does the military and the forces that operate around Area 51 have more power than the U.S. government? Geez, that's a tough question to answer.
No, he didn't say that. He didn't say that specifically, that it was a more powerful area than our own government. He actually spoke quite a bit about the programs, the people who are in the programs, how highly trained they are and how good they are at what they do. But he never said that they were more powerful than our full military or other military or other military groups, forces. So no. He never commented on that.
Let's go to AARO. Am I mistaken, or did he first say he went through Congress and not the IG, then say he did go to the IG?
He did go to the IG, the ICIG. So the ICIG got the complaint. And he also, I believe, did testimony in front of Congress as well. We'll have to ask him about that. But I asked him if he testified, and he said yes. And he said last night he also did the ICIG complaint. So I think it was both. But Rob can ask him if he's chatting with him. He can get clarity on that.
Right. All right. Let's see where else we're going here. Rose would like to know, Courtney, are you an experiencer?
Yes, I am. That's one of the things I do on Spaced Out Radio in the news hour is I kind of talk about experiencer issues in the news. When I can, I bring them to light.
What was your thoughts? And this is where we're going to get a little controversial here a little bit. What was your thoughts about him bringing up the 20 and back program, even though he didn't call it the 20 and back program, but this seems to be what is lighting up X today.
Oh, I think it's more than just the 20 and back. There's a bunch of things lighting up X today, but there are definitely people focused on that. I mean, for a whole other space, people were just focused on the task force forum, for a long time. So people definitely grab on to different parts of this. I knew that he had acknowledged that program. But yeah, it is a controversial thing and he didn't want to go into it. And so, he can't really.
I think part of the issue is, the falsehoods of people like Corey Good have really ruined any type of information that a 20 and back program or whatever they're calling it could be all about. And I see that being a real issue because everybody who is criticizing Jason Sands for coming out about that is also mentioning the Corey Good factor in this, and that Corey Good admitted in court that it was pretty much all fallacy than fact. And now they're like, geez, we just exposed Corey Good. Now we got Jason Sands talking about this. Will this a big issue that Jason is going to have to deal with in the future? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't ever buy into the Corey Good story because something about that just seemed like it was more entertainment value. I do think, though, that we've heard of things. He said when the UAP task force was looking into these issues, breakaway civilizations was one of the categories that they were looking at, or another civilization like Atlantis, or ET and those hypotheses, or extra dimensional, interdimensional. Those were the three categories that they were looking at.
No, I could totally see that. But do you think now that he has brought up the secret space program, that this is going to taint in the eyes of people? It doesn't taint it for me because I try and look at all the facts. I know you do too. But for a lot of people, it seems that the mention of that is going to potentially taint everything good, or what they feel is good, in what he said.
Yeah, there's no doubt that it could. He didn't ask anybody to believe him. He said that he was just saying things as the truth as he knew them, and that it was up to people to make their minds up or not about it. And so my mind is still open about that program. I didn't believe in it before, but I also had my own experience and didn't believe in any of this stuff either. So sometimes when so much evidence will come out, you kind of have to change your mind. I'm still in analysis process right now.
How are you dealing with it all?
I like Jason Sands, and I stand by him. I believe in him. I think that he is hero. I think he is courageous for what he did. I think that it took just incredible courage to come out on a Twitter space and reach the public directly. I respect him for that. Is he going to take the heat? Not by people who are his friends and who believe in him and know his story and have supported him all along. And there are people who have supported him all along and know his story. So I think that those people will draw closer, and he'll know who his allies and his friends are. And the other ones, they're always going to be out there. I mean, we've seen them the whole time on places like Twitter, and they try to take people down. So that's certainly a possibility. And so, yeah, I'm concerned about that. I worry about that, but there's nothing you can do. And he's prepared for it.
He seems, one of the comments that he made is he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. He's got the shoulders to handle it, but we could all sit there and say that, but when you get as much criticism, it's hard not to, go in there and say, well, what are people looking at here? What are they saying about me? I mean, that's tough to take, some of the comments that are out there from a lot of, so-called experts and a lot of people who use their opinion as proper information.
I don't think he will go on there. He's not a big Twitter user. He's not a big social media guy. I think he does, talk to his friends and keep wise counsel with his friends. And so hopefully he won't go into those spaces and see all the negativity. But there's also a lot of positivity as well, and people standing up for him. So, but it's the good mix with the bad. And a lot of people who are in these things, they, on their posts or their videos that they do, they don't want to read the comments. And that's kind of thing. Like, you don't necessarily want to know. You just want to plow forward. So I can't speak for him and how he's feeling today, but I hope that he did get a lot of the validation in the space last night, because that was overwhelming.
Right. It was a little bit overwhelming for him, and for a lot of people. It was overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people who were even hearing it, but it is what it is. There's going to be a lot of critique going on, and we're just, the entity, according to Philip Blair, well, how tall was the entity? Human size, correct?
Yeah, he said it was like in the space last night. He said it was like 5'6", 5'7", a little shorter than he is.
Right. Okay. So where do we go from here? Where does this go?
I think that it helps the movement in the UFO community. I think one, the UFO community was acknowledged. People in the UFO community got to ask direct questions. This is what people have been asking for months is we want the whistleblowers, so then a whistleblower comes out and speaks with them directly. So in many ways that wish was granted or delivered. And so I think the next part is just to support the whistleblowers and really try to push through. That was one of the things he was saying last night. Like, we really need to get on the same team. We really need to use our collective support to move the ball forward together and not get mired down into our petty differences. Like, try to work politically. He talked specifically about political action because people asked him what they could do, and he said political, helping with the Schumer Amendment 2.0, getting that pushed through congressionally, and the support for that. So he did say quite a few things that could be done going forward.
Right. Out of everybody you have talked to regarding Jason Sands, why do you trust him? Why do you think that he is legit? Because there's a lot of people calling him out right now. And you have had probably the most intimate conversations regarding this subject out of anybody.
If he doesn't know something, he says it. He says, I don't know that, or I don't know that context or that reference. If you get it to me, I'll read it. So he doesn't try to know everything. He and I have had a lot of interactions where we're trying to communicate about things and there's miscommunications, and we're able to work through it, right? And not hurt each other's feelings. And so I like the person that he is. I really like the kind of guy that he is, that he can say, hey, let's work through this. There was a misunderstanding, and get to a better place. And so because he talks about his own process when he gets up in the morning to be a better person, to be a better man, to be a better father, to be a better grandfather, those are the things that I really think make him a high caliber, high quality person. I mean, it's not just the stories of his service, because he has done a lot of service. He is a veteran. He is somebody who was in the intelligence community and has high level knowledge of all this stuff. But it's the kind of person he is. That's what makes me trust him and know he's for real.
Knowing that he has spoken with other whistleblowers, from the only name we really know, David Grush, we know, I believe he's in a group of whistleblowers that chats frequently together. Do you think this is going to change the way other whistleblowers think about coming publicly?
I think they have supported him. Like I said, last year, they supported him a lot. And I think that they have a good group established. And I think that he will give his reasonings to them why he did this, or why he felt the need, or maybe he even ran it by a few of them before he did it. I don't know. But no, I don't think it's going to break up the whistleblower group.
All right. Well, I hope not. I hope not. I hope that it continues to flow the way it is. And yes, on earlier today, I'm going to bring up a picture of it if I can, because I have retweeted this. A lot of people were calling for his discharge papers regarding his service. And he did post. Now, being Canadian, I don't know what these discharge papers actually mean. Okay. And maybe you guys could walk me through this. But he did bring up his discharge papers and put them on his X profile here. And there they are for everybody. I know it's going to be difficult for people to read, but
Well,
there they
great.
are. I mean,
that's great that he put up documentation. That's what people wanted to know. They wanted to know, who he worked for, or they wanted to have some documentation of his service to show who he was. So I didn't know that was loaded up. That's great.
Okay, so here's what it says. And pardon me for looking like an idiot here, but my eyes don't read small print very well. Name, Jason Theodore Sands, Department, Component, and Branch, Air Force, REGAF. Maybe somebody knows what that means. Grade, rate, or rank, MSG. I guess that might be Master Sergeant. Pardon me if I got that wrong. And that would pay grade was E7. Once again, I apologize for squinting here. His date of birth is on there. Reserve obligation, termination date not applicable. Last duty assignment and major command. OLEH 68 info OPNS. I think that's SQ or SO, and then in brackets ACC. And then Randolph Air Force Base, Texas is where he was stationed last. And then it gives the dates. Date entered service January 15th, 1985. Separation date of the period November 30th, 2007. Net active service this period 22 years, 10 months, and 16 days. Total prior active service 0000. Total prior inactive service 00 3 months, 26 days. Foreign service 10 years, 11 months, 28 days. No sea service. Effective date of pay grade November or 2005 November 1st. And member contributed to post-Vietnam era Veterans Educational Assistance Program. Yes or no. A high school graduate or equivalent. Yes. Days accrued leave paid 0. Member was provided complete dental examination and all appropriate dental services and treatment within 90 days prior to separation. Yes, it was marked. Remarks. It says item 13, War on Terrorism Service Medal, Humanitarian Service Medal, Air Force Overseas Ribbon, Long Air Force Longevity Service with 4 oak leaf clusters, U.S. Air Force NCO PME Graduate Ribbon with 2 oak leaf clusters, Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon with rifle, Air Force Training Ribbon, NATO Medal where first NATO Medal was awarded. Item 14, Combat Operations Course, June 1989. APR Defensive C3 CM Spec, July 1988. Airframe Repair Specialist Course, June 1985. Subject to recall to active duty by Secretary of the Air Force. Nothing follows. And going down to the bottom where it says special additional information, type of separation, retirement, character of service, honorable, separation authority, AFI 36-3203, separation code R8B or D, or is that R? I don't know if that's a B or an 8. Reentry code 2V, narrative reason for separation, voluntary retirement, sufficient service for retirement, dates of time lost during this period, none. Member request copy for non-applicable. That's a DD form 214 automated. There you go.
Well, thank you for reading that all out. I'm glad he put up his papers so that can all be documented. So when people put that into question, they'll be able to see it.
Yeah. So I apologize if I screwed up on any of the terminology there. That's the first time I've actually looked into a DD214. So there you have it. And that is on Jason Sand's Twitter account right now. If anybody wants to go see that, I will put his Twitter handle up on in our chat room if anybody wants to take a look at it, and they can look at it for themselves. Now, I apologize if anybody had any questions regarding this, but I mean, that's one of the things. A lot of people were calling, where's your DD214? Prove that this is what you did. This is what your service was. Now, how are people going to break that down? Like I said, I've never seen a DD214 being Canadian. I just couldn't have access to it. Well, I guess I could out of a FOIA request, but I found it. I'm pretty sure there's going to be people going over that with a fine-tooth comb, Courtney.
I trust him. I'm glad he put up some service record information for people to have as a reference point. You know, I don't need to dig into all that. He gave me his history and his background. We discussed his military experience, that he was in the Air Force. You know, I took a lot of that at face value. I didn't need to see a lot of the military records. I did see his IDs. He presented those to me in his government service when I met him to show that he was who he said he was and that he worked in government. So 3 different IDs were presented.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good right there. We don't seem to have any more questions. We got 510 people watching this right now, especially on X. If you don't mind, if you're new to us here on Spaced Out Radio, give us a follow if you don't mind. And you know, if you're listening on YouTube for the first time, please hit subscribe, ring that bell. And random guy or race fan was not in the gold medal position at all last week says, since this guy has come out with this info, how will that change ufology as we know it?
Oh, well, I think for one, we have seen a tidal shift trying to diminish or lessen or even to some degree extinguish the UFO community. But the Twitter space last night was held with the whistleblower for the first time in the UFO community. So I think it somehow strengthens ufology, because the people that were in the UFO community in that space last night were all highly educated. They asked good questions. They were respectful. They didn't diss on him. There was only a couple people that really questioned why he was doing this, or did he have actual whistleblower status, or asked about his credibility. You know, and everybody was very grateful, very thankful. So I actually think, you know, a byproduct of all of this might be strengthening ufology, you know, which, I mean, who would have guessed that? I mean, it's a total left field thing. So I think it will give a shot in the arm actually to ufology, because all these people that work so hard in research and getting to the bottom of things, they just got a huge delivery of information, and let's keep up the good work and let's move forward together. So I thought that was very collaborative in nature.
Right. A lot of people are going to say, where's the proof? Where's the photos? Where's everything from the alien to the other information that you have put out? That seems to be an echo chamber for a lot of people skeptical about anybody from the government side of things talking about this subject right now. You know,
he said that too, right? Were you on there when he said, "Hey, I'd love to have a UFO on my back, you know, to take to Congress"? I mean, he said that, you know, but he did direct them to where things were, the, you know, different locations, and so they have all the information now. If they'll be able to legally get to it, that's part of the problem. That's part of the hurdle moving forward for Congress to get to it legally.
Do you think we will hear from Congress about him? Do you think now that his name is out that we will hear any of the representatives actually saying, I want to sit down and talk with Jason Sands?
Yes. Yes, I do. I think that Congress people were already being read in about his whistleblower status and his testimony, because he had already met with a few people in Congress. He had been called in and he gave testimony privately to them. I do know that. So I think that, yeah, this is definitely going to get out. It was hugely popular. People are talking about it. And he has already given information to the ICIG. So, you know, he's legit. So I think they're going to definitely want to follow up with him.
And the fact that he is on record with Congress as and AARO as a whistleblower. I mean, you know, it'd be nice to have, you know, that testimony brought forward. You know, why do you think you know what, I'll get to an audience question here first, because I want to formulate this question here. So Sasquatch guy is asking, do you think this may start a new whistleblower X disclosure trend?
You know, if it does, I'll be happy to say I was involved with it and I was part of it, and I saw it take shape and take form, and it was incredible. it was incredible. There was just this huge surgence of people talking to each other, coming in. I mean, there was over 1,000 at one time when I was in there. So that was pretty impressive to see, because, you know, one of the things I always used to think about was Tip O'Neill's thing, like all politics is local, but really X has made things that are somewhat national or national foreign policy. It's made them very intimate, almost like local politics in a way. So I do think X could be used in that way as kind of like a Tip O'Neill, all politics are local thing, because people can really get their voice out there, and it could be used to mobilize voting potentially. I don't know. I know that it was very controversial with the last election and things. And so, you know, that could come into play too here in the future. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see if it's a trend.
It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And let's go to Pixie Lara here. Courtney, will you be reaching out to any congressional members on this?
Yeah, I've already started working on getting a meeting with Jamie Rankin. I do communicate with Tim Burchett's office. I have communicated with Senator Gillibrand's office. I have communicated with AOC's office out of New York. So I continue to try to make inroads. I have learned about the grassroots organization, the community organizers out of New York. So I have contacted them to try to work together to spearhead our efforts and maybe get a national movement going if we can. We don't have a lot of time. So you really have to work your networks and people who are in these congressional districts to try to get a foothold in the door. But yes, I'm working on that.
When a whistleblower comes out, like Jason Sands or David Grush or whomever has talked behind the scenes, do the Congress people have the information in front of them to note the validity of the person that they are speaking to?
When these people are having backdoor conversations, do they have something in front of them that says that they're a person of note? I think, yes, that you have to send forward bona fides and things like that, especially if you have military service. That all gets accounted for when you go into congressional spaces. But you obviously get to have leverage if you are a person of note to get into Congress, especially if you have something specialized, like you're a subject matter expert like he would be.
It's very, very intriguing to me, you know,
Well, somebody like Chris Mellon is going to be able to open doors for people like David Grush and Jason Sands, you know, absolutely, if that's what you're asking.
Right. And let's see here. Sure. Okay. According to Rob, he got a message from Jason. He goes, make sure that folks understand that when I was asked about 20 and back, that it is not the version that the guy made up. I even said that was not the name, but they do have a program where you have to do some pretty screwed up stuff. But it is not 20 and back. Some people have already debunked, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm. Good clarification.
Yeah. And I appreciate
I'm glad we didn't go into too much of depth on that, because he didn't either. And so it's easy to get it misconstrued with something else. And Corey's good story is completely different, and that was totally related to Gaia. So it's a completely different project that he was talking about.
All right. And I'm curious, as we go on here, if we have any other questions from our audience, because
it doesn't look like it. I don't see any. Do you? I'm
not seeing any here.
All right. Well, then let's wrap it up. What thoughts do you have, Dave? Let's do the spaced out news review, you know, as we usually do.
Here's my thoughts on it, and this is my opinion. I think we're too quick to roast people. Okay, I was watching Twitter last night while Jason was speaking, and I was checking the usual suspects' profiles, and they were all going on what his word was. And once again, there's no evidence, there's no proof, he's got nothing, this is all full of shit and garbage. Let the guy take a piss and have a sleep first before we start hitting him up for all stuff. I mean, this is just a Q&A session that he was kind of going through, and where did the patience go? Let's allow him to breathe and get settled in before we start trying to knock him down or any whistleblower down. Look, I'm just as frustrated as everybody else that there is no real evidence that they can provide for us outside of what they've experienced or who they worked for, okay, and the little things that we can check up on. But to absolutely crucify someone because you're misconstruing what he said for 20 and back or for anything else just to try and, play the aha Katya card. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. And once again, this is my opinion. Okay. If we want more people to take these stories a little bit more seriously, we have to stop with the aha Katya moments. That hurts everybody. It hurts the people who are in this field. It hurts the whistleblowers. It hurts those that are trying to get the information out. And look, I'm not saying you have to believe Jason. I'm not saying that at all. I've talked with the guy personally, and I know that his biggest concern was he didn't want to go to jail. And he was very careful with what he was saying regarding everything, at least to me.
Look, I got warned, like I got warned when I went there and I met with them and all the hijinks that went on when I came back to Alaska to share the story. It was like we were warned not to share it. And so, we took that seriously, and we kept our agreement, and then somebody else leaked it. Somebody else leaked the story on another podcast, so it was out there. And we always held to his standards of not mentioning his name, not saying who he was or where he worked or any of those things. And we always kept those promises. So
Yeah.
I feel like we did right by him. And I feel like we also helped to protect him to a certain degree, because there were threats and other things to whistleblowers around that time, really serious stuff. And so I do think we were able to talk about a lot of this before he came out, on Spaced Out Radio. We were able to discuss it. We were able to have dialogues. And, frankly, some of the people that are here in the chat were saying the criticisms that people are saying now back then. Remember, they're like, you don't have a whistleblower, Courtney. You don't know a whistleblower. You have no idea if he is real or not. And so I have to say, I still stand by my statement. I think that he's a whistleblower. I mean, he showed me his IDs and everything. So until I'm proven otherwise, I believe him. Just like I believed Grush when Grush came out and people said he's potentially a patsy, he's being used. I still believe in Grush to this day.
I do want to ask you one thing before we cut the feed here, because I think this is an important thing we do need to talk about. And that was the fact that Jason was very adamant when asked last night in his belief that these are extraterrestrial beings. They are not interdimensional. They are not time travelers. They're not here from inner Earth or anything like that. He was very much adamant that they were extraterrestrial, non-human intelligences from outer space. Are you able to comment on that and what you may know?
I don't know. I mean, see, that's the thing. I don't know. I mean, there are so many people like Jacques Vallée, high-level people, have said that he would be really surprised if it's the ET hypothesis. But then you have Greer, who really does say it's the ET hypothesis. So having somebody actually have a first-hand encounter that can actually describe the being, to describe his subjective experience while he's having a telepathic experience, is completely new information and knowledge. Especially in a congressional setting. And so I'm leaving my mind open, once again, whether it is an ET. He says it's an ET. That's what he experienced. I'm not there. So once again, I would defer to Jason because he knows what he's seeing and hearing. And this would be like saying, like what AARO did and saying, oh, no, you're just mistaken. You're just mistaken about what you heard about grays. You're just mistaken about what you heard or saw in the desert. I mean, it's invalidating to his own first person experience. So I'm not going to say no that ET doesn't exist because he saw one. So I think firsthand testimony is important, and we haven't had that yet at this part of the stage of the game with Congress.
Courtney, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a quick break because I want to allow our audience. I know you've been working all day. If you want to stick around, that's fine. But I'm going to be opening up to anybody who wants to join in on our YouTube for a few minutes. I'm not going to do much longer, but I'm going to just continue on with the feed. I am going to take a little bit of a break here because I have to go check on my new dog, El Guapo, see how he's doing. Maybe I'll bring him on camera for a couple of minutes just for everybody to see El Guapo. But if you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to. But I know you're getting pretty tired, and you've been up for about what are you at now? 68 hours, 79 hours, 84 hours.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a marathon pace. I couldn't sleep last night during the space because I was just hanging on every word.
Yeah. So it's up. I'm going to leave that up to you on whether I'm not going to go much longer because I do have an appointment this afternoon.
I think I'll probably go. It sounds like I answered everybody's questions about the space last night to the best that I could. You guys can always send questions, through Dave and Spaced Out Radio if you have more. I see some people just got the space chatted in here, the recording, so you'll be able to listen to it yourself and take your own notes. And I just want to say this to all the SOR people who have been here through our whole journey from the time that we broke the story until now, till Jason Sands coming out on the record and validating all of it. You trusted us. You believed in us. You hung with us. I know it was hard, and we just kept saying, be patient and be patient and pay patient. And so I'm just really happy about this day. It's a good day. It's a good day for Dave, and it's a good day for me, and it's a great day for Jason Sands. And so I'm going to relish in that, and I'm going to celebrate. So
have a hot dog.
Well, my sister just made me a vegetarian burrito. So I had a burrito. Maybe nice. I'll have a Canadian, dry. So thank you to everybody. Thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. You helped me keep going this whole time. And Dave too, I know.
Courtney, you're amazing at what you're doing. And you're one of the dogged researchers out there who is trying really hard to get this story out. You deserve a lot of the credit for helping Jason come out and build that trust and relationship with him. And you deserve a lot of the credit for helping with that. And we're so blessed to have you as part of the Spaced Out Radio family. And I can't wait to chat with you tomorrow night on the big show.
Rock on, brother. Thank you, everybody, for coming into the chat. And especially those of you who are new to Spaced Out Radio, welcome. And I hope to see you some nights on the news when I do my segment. All right.
Absolutely.
Bye,
thank you.
Take care.
I'm going to take about a 5-minute break here. And when I come back, I'm going to post the link. Once again, if you're in our YouTube chat, you can go on the link right there. It's pinned to the top. And what I will do is I'm going to go get my new puppy. I'll let you guys see it, but we're not done with this. I'm going to take this till probably the top of the hour if the questions continue. But I want to hear your voice. Do you agree with what's going on? Do you not agree with what's going on? We're going to go a little bit longer here for all of you, but give me about 2-3 minutes here, and I'll come back with El Guapo. Be right back, guys. right, everybody. This is El Guapo. This is him. He's just a little cuddle bug. I adopted him a couple days ago. And he's kind of cute. Yeah, he's kind of cute. I named him El Guapo because he is handsome. He's very handsome. Yeah. It's my new little guy. Right here. My new little guy. Yeah. He's got the Chihuahua shakes going on right now. Yeah. Can you say hello? He doesn't bark. Yeah. That's my little guy here. He's never been in this room yet. So he's a little wondering. I don't know if he's mixed with Healer or not. But he's vibrating like anything. All right. If you have any questions, I'm going to put the link up once again. And you guys can ask away. Oh, not that link. Pardon me. I apologize. Do not use that link that I put in the chat room. And there you go. There's the new link. And let's see if I can get this on the X space here. I'll put this in the X chat room as well. If you guys want to join me, I'm only here until the top of the hour, guys. So if you guys want to chat, you can come on in and tell me what you think. We're talking Jason Sands coming out. It's all on you guys now. Yeah. No idea if he eats Taco Bell or not. Major Lee, I knew this would make you happy. Hey, Katie Page. How are you? All right. Let's see if any of you come on. I've put the link up. It is pinned to the top of the YouTube channel. You're more than welcome to come say hello. I want to know your opinion. And like I said, I'm going to keep this going until the top of the hour. Let's go to Pixie Lara. Hi, Pixie Lara. How are you?
I'm doing great, Dave. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to you, to Courtney, to Rob G, and Jason. You know, you didn't have to jump in with the, quote, breaking news last night on After Hours, but you did. You'd said for months that as soon as you and Courtney were able to share more about this whistleblower, that you would. And you stayed true to your word, and that means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to others in the community. And so I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you, sir.
Well, I really appreciate that. And it was a decision when I found out about it. I was actually on just a little drive, hanging on out and going through the countryside. And then I got tipped off that this was going on, and I was listening to it, and I was about half an hour, 45 minutes from home. And I'm like, damn it, how do I get home and get a hold of Rob? Because internet signal was if you know internet signal in my area, Pixie Lara, you know that there are areas where you get it and areas that you don't. So we we raced home, and you will I immediately hopped on with Rob, said we had some breaking news going on, and he was in an interview on After Hours with our Keith Andrews, and he immediately picked it up. And you know, a lot of thanks has to go to our Keith Andrews and Brian Bowden, who were the guests last night. And you know, Keith had no problem taking a back seat. Neither did Brian for this. So we really owe it all to them, because the last thing you want to do is bump a guest in doing what we do. But so a lot of big thanks to both of them, and to Rob G for really holding down the fort and making things happen on the weekend. So, they owe a lot of credit as well.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So I'm going to hop off. I just, like I said, wanted to say thank you, and thank you for your continued work within the community, paranormal, supernatural, UFO, all of it, and giving us a place where we can come together and put aside our differences and talk about our experiences in a safe way.
Well, I appreciate you, and the fact that you're there each and every night supporting us, Pixie Lara. That means a lot, not only to you, but all of our listeners who tune in every night, because we're kind of a hybrid type show. Not only are we a live radio show, but we're a live podcast, a live YouTube channel, and we try and bring the news mixed in with people's stories and research along with that some people aren't going to agree with, because more people out there are nuts and bolts than the old school woo style of stories. So we kind of bring in, but we want to make we try and bring a healthy mixture of both. And there's some really incredible people out there right now who are doing some very, very hard work in bringing out the whole governmental side of this UFO story. And we're only at the tip of the iceberg right now. And with us being at the tip of the iceberg, it's so hard to get any sort of information and to gain trust from those people who would love to come out but really can't. I mean, there's a lot of, for every one person that comes out one day, like Jason Sands did yesterday, there's hundreds of conversations about this behind the scenes, not just with me, but with Courtney and other people, and whistleblowers among whistleblowers. And this involves all sorts of alphabet agencies and everything that kind of goes along with that. So it's a lot more difficult than what people think. I mean, you just can't call somebody up and say, hey, come on my show. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. I wish it did.
No.
I wish it was easier.
Yeah, not in the real world. In the real world, these people have families, they have jobs, they have pensions, they have lives that all could be put in jeopardy in one form or another by stepping out into the public eye, speaking publicly, whether it's, they've signed an NDA that there are certain things they can't disclose, and so they have to walk that fine line, or they, when they do speak up, well, then everyone back at the office hears about it, and they make a laughing stock out of them, and they end up getting fired. So there's so much to be considered behind the scenes when these people come forward, and grace that needs to be given to these people when they speak, and let it play out.
And I think you bring up a very important point there. It's much like with athletes. We all have a favorite sports team where, we want to see players traded. We want to see players signed to free agent contracts. And, we tend to forget that these players, or in this case, whistleblowers, are human beings as well. We forget to think that they have a career that they have to think of. They might not be of retirement age. So things like pension and job opportunity moving forward are still very important. They may be putting children through college. They probably have mortgages and car payments and electrical bills and cell phone bills. We tend to forget all of this because we're so focused on the UFO story. And I think that's where we really forget that they are people too, and they have their own bills to pay, just like you do and I do. And I'm not making that as an excuse. That's reality of what's going on. I mean, look, I can say for myself with Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Radio is a business. We're not a grifting site. We are not a site that is doing this for free. I've always maintained that we are a business, but this business doesn't make enough money for me to let go of my daytime job that actually allows me to put food on the table, gas in my tank, keep a roof over our head. And these people are going through the exact same thing. And
Hmm.
when you're in a position where then you add the stress of if you say the wrong thing due to NDAs and other commitments that you have made to the alphabet agencies and or the military, that puts added pressure on things, because how would you like to have your 20-year pension ripped out of your hands, or how would you like to be threatened with jail time if you say the wrong thing accidentally? Because
Exactly.
humans do mess up. And I think we tend to forget all of that. I mean, never mind if you believe or not believe in Jason or the stories that he has brought forward, but it does kind of come out that it is. Hold on, I'm being visited here. You want to take him? There you go. Thank you. It is something. Go play with your friend. Thanks, bud. It is something that we do tend to forget about on our daily basis, because we are so blinded by the story. And
Absolutely.
I hope people take a minute to put your emotions aside, sit back a little bit, and actually say, okay, this guy is putting a lot of people in jeopardy. What about his wife? What about his children? What about their future, their mortgage? If he says the wrong thing, is he going to be able to get another job? And if so, would that be within the government community or outside the government community? Would somebody trust him as a contractor again? There is a lot of different scenarios that play out with this, and I think at times we forget that.
I agree 100%. And I know from my experiences, mine are more paranormal, dealing with spirits, dealing with, ghosts, poltergeists, that kind of stuff. But even so, I know people within that part of the community who, when they have come out publicly and talked about their experiences, um, it's really, again, something that's hard to validate with quote physical evidence. And so you get those people that want to turn around and attack without taking a breath, taking a moment, seeing the person behind the story. How is this impacting them? How has it changed their life? What's going to happen when the neighbor next door decides to spray paint your front door that you're a liar, that, you know, these kinds of things, unfortunately, while they are in the minority within our community, they do happen. And, everything from threatening emails to phone calls to vandalization and worse. And so when someone like Jason steps forward and are not only willing to speak his truth and tell what he experienced in a calm way, and then provide even his DD214 to say, here, this is who I am. We need to give those people grace.
I would agree with you on that. And one of the other debates that's also come out here is about Sands and using a Twitter space to come public with, rather than going on with Tucker Carlson or Joe Rogan or Fox News, CNN, or News Nation, or whoever it may be, or maybe an article with Leslie Keene, that ends up either on the New York Times or the Debrief. And all of those are good outlets,
Mhm.
or even coming on this show and coming out, to a lesser extent. But that being said, Jason Sands chose what he was going to do. I'm sure it was a very difficult decision, but felt, well,
Mhm.
it's now or never. So I don't put as much stock into the fact that he came out during a Twitter space, that a lot of people are kind of saying, well, if this guy was legit, he should have come out on a real news network and not somebody's Twitter space. But unfortunately, the old school way of me thinking as a journalist is I agree with that. He should have had a better platform that could have done it. But the new way of thinking, the way media is changing, is that maybe this was the best place for him to come in and for him to share his experience to a lot of people that garnered a lot of attention, knowing it was going to be retweeted and replayed. And, good on Rob Wood for catching on to that, and good on Rob Wood for running with it. He deserves a lot of credit for that.
Absolutely agreed. Rob did an amazing job from the part that I was able to listen to in keeping it in a calm environment, in a respectful environment. There were a couple of people that spoke up that started to get a bit aggressive, and he dialed that back. He said, "Okay, we're going to move on to the next." But he did also give fair space to everyone to ask their questions. But I have to commend Jason. Actually, without knowing it, I think he did something amazing by stepping forward on this X space, which is a open public community. It's not a TV show. It's not a newscast. It's not a podcast. It's a place where people within the community, you, me, regular people, come to share their experience. He wasn't going on something like Joe Rogan where, the next people will say is, "Oh, well, he must have gotten paid $1,000 to come on there and say this." No, he did it in a public setting, and I commend him on that.
Well, and I think we should all kind of commend him. Laura, I'm going to let you go because I do have someone else waiting here. But I thank you for your great comments and your continued love and support of Spaced Out Radio. That means a lot to me. So thank you very much.
Virtual hugs, and we'll see you in the chat.
Absolutely, my friend. Thank you, Pixie. All right. Linda Thompson, thank you for that wonderful super chat. Very much appreciate your love and support of Spaced Out Radio, along with Andrew, Android, and Pixie Laura, who just got off the air. Let's head over to Major Lee. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, deep breath, Dave. How you doing?
I am excellent. And Major Lee in the United Kingdom, and we love having him here. And by the way, I'm just going to say this right before we get to the UFO topic. Major Lee, I love it when you send me pictures of your dogs. And you're always posting them on our Spaced Out Radio group on Facebook, and I just want you to know publicly how much I appreciate that, because I'm just a dog guy. What can I say?
That's a wonderful group. It's always a privilege being part of the community. So, deep breaths. I think I'm pretty much like yourself and Courtney. This first dropped about 6:30, 7 a.m. in the UK yesterday, and I was listening to the stream live when it was interrupted, when you came in with that breaking news. And so I mean, the baton has been passed, I think, from, and you know me, Dave, I'm a bit of a skeptic. The baton has been passed from the Nat Corbell team to the Fox team. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence. Is this a big publicity stunt? Are people being played? Or are we seeing the real deal here?
Well, that's the $1 million question right now, Major Lee. I mean, I think we do have to have a hint of skepticism with anybody from an alphabet agency or contractor comes out with that. And that includes Jason Sands, who I've talked to personally about this. But you know what, Lee, the one thing that I will say is, outside of Twitter, when we talk to people, we try and take people at their word that they're telling us the truth. And yeah, sometimes we get burnt, but the majority of the time, people are good people. And, like if you're, meeting your neighbors for the first time, like I could tell you right now, in a few days, my neighbor right beside me here is going to be moving. And he's been my neighbor for 9 years, and I'm pissed off that he's moving because he's one of those I can fix anything neighbors. So if your lawnmower breaks down or your weed whacker isn't working, he's the first guy to say, "Hey, just take mine, or I'll fix yours," or whatever. I mean, it's been a lovely relationship, and you try, and the new people that are coming in, you try and take them at their word that they're going to be hopefully just as good as the last one. And in the UFO world, we don't seem to be very accepting of that. And not all of us, I would say the majority of us are, but there is a very loud minority that is very vocal on X and other spaces and other YouTube channels that are out there. And I'm not saying that, we shouldn't be skeptical. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not a believer in absolutely everything that comes out, but we do have to take things with a grain of salt. We do have to be able to verify. And when people independently, like Courtney or myself or whoever, gets that verified, we have to be able to run it as if it's as truthful as
sure. Yeah, sure. And it just seems a lot of these drops seem to happen, within a month or so. Before a documentary is dropping by one of the big wigs. I think the term we coined, Dave, was dollars for disclosure. And
Yes.
I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Listening this morning, this guy seems genuine. But Bob Lazar seems genuine. I'm kind of on the fence with this one, Dave. I'm not sure which way to go with it. I'm not sure if it's all legit and things are moving forward, or if it's just a promotional gig for Fox's next documentary.
And you know what? I would say that's a healthy way to look at things, Lee. I think it's a very healthy way to look at things, and that's why Jason Sands, if you're listening, I'm going to promote the fact that please don't be a one and done. The one and done, this community gets bent over like anything when it comes to people throwing out information from positions of authority, and then you never hear them speak again. Okay, we've had that happen numerous times, and I don't want to see that happen with Jason Sands. I think he has a lot to say. I think, much like any type of military contractor, he's probably going to go back and he's going to sit back. He's going to analyze the responses from people. He's going to analyze the responses from what he said. He's probably going to analyze his own answers on everything.
What I will say, Dave, is that Courtney is an incredibly diligent researcher. And so I find I can take it to the bank. If she's saying she believes something and she's put the time and effort into making these connections, which a lot of them go unseen. With Courtney on board, I'm kind of leaning towards this. This could be something. But it's out there. It dropped yesterday out of the blue. I think it was kind of out of the blue. I think there might have been a little rehearsal in the hours beforehand. But it was a bit of a jaw drop moment yesterday, and I think it still is for a lot of people who for a lot of people who are just coming into that. And I'll let you wrap up with that, Dave.
Well, Lee, I appreciate that, and I think you brought up some good points on the fact that be skeptical, be someone who is looking for others. And this is why I think Jason Sands has to come back out, and he has to be able to maybe give us a little bit more information or go into more detail with what's happened. But I think, I don't see him coming back out on a Twitter space. I'm hoping he comes back out with a media outlet. I apologize. My son just walked in here, and, but let's at least hope that the door that has opened up a crack is going to continue to open. I don't believe for a second, Lee, that this is, like many are saying, and, out there on Twitter right now, they've blown this out of proportion, that he's another Corey Good, or that he has ruined things for all whistleblowers, because that's out there as well from a couple people who have connections in the UFO world. I don't believe that whatsoever. Okay. And what I do know, in talking to one of my sources earlier today from an alphabet agency, that the whistleblowers were more concerned about the public's reaction to them coming out than they were about coming out about their stories. Okay. And trying to come out and help apply that pressure to the whistleblowers. So I think you're on it. I know you have your own sources, Lee, and you're one of the good guys out there, and more dog picks, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem, Dave. Listen, the UK is listening, and a lot of Europe is listening. This isn't just a United States, Canada thing. There's a lot of ears to the ground at the moment, and I think things might start picking up going into spring. Like I said to you a couple of months ago, things are happening, things are moving, and I think Courtney has made some big waves this week, and I think we all might be surfing on those waves in the coming weeks and months.
The one thing that I've learned from Courtney, there's very few people like Courtney out there that when she speaks, I listen. And I know that, and I'm going to be blunt with you, I don't ask her a lot of questions about who her sources are and everything, because she plays by the journalistic type rules that she's going to protect. If she feels that I need to know who's speaking, she offers that up to me. I really have a lot of respect for the hard work and dedication that Courtney Marcassani is bringing, not only to SOR, but to the UFO community. And if you're not following her on X at what is her handle? Let me find that. I just sent it to you, Lee, the other day. So let me check here. What is her handle here? At Inspired Creative spelled CREATV. I think that everything's going to be, if you follow what Courtney's doing, everything's going to be just fine. But I have to book on out of here, because it is time for me. I got to go get ready for an appointment that I have to do. Yes, I have to finish my taxes for 2023, and I got to be at my accountant's in about an hour. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in to our live impromptu SOR show here on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, on Twitch, and on LinkedIn. And thank you for your questions, everybody. And I very much appreciate you tuning us all in as we say goodnight to all of you. Coming up later on in about 5 hours, Jessica Jones from the Cryptid Huntress will be on Spaced Out Radio, followed up by Rob G and After Hours on Sunday. I will be back tomorrow night. We have a very interesting guest for you tomorrow night on my end, and I will let you know who that is. It is a lady named Maya Cowan. She is from Binghamton University, and she's an anthropologist who is part of the SCU and part of the Society for UAP Studies Citizen Science Working Group. We're going to be talking some UFOs, crash retrievals, and everything to go along with that. Enjoy lots of Spaced Out Radio with Jessica and Rob coming up here a little bit later on. And on that note, we'll say goodnight to all of you, or good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for tuning us in tonight. If you have any questions, give us a subscribe and follow on YouTube. And I know there are over 570 people right now on X listening in. Give us a follow because we're trying to bring the best to you each and every day, 7 days a week. Have a great one, everybody.